A small green plant sits in a shallow tray of water. There is no soil under it, no compost, no garden bed. And yet, within just a few days, it doubles in size. In less than a week, it looks thick and full, almost ready to harvest. What makes this even more surprising is that, by weight, this tiny plant can contain more protein than eggs. Now that sounds backward. Most of us are taught that strong nutrition comes from rich soil, long seasons, and careful feeding. But here's a plant that seems to ignore all of that. It grows faster than most vegetables, needs very little space, and somehow it still manages to be highly nutritious. Over the years, many gardeners have come across this type of plant, often by accident. Some tried it once and forgot about it. Others never noticed it at all. It quietly sits outside the usual gardening habits. By the end of this, you'll understand why something so simple and useful was quietly pushed aside and rarely talked about. If this feels confusing, it's very common. Most gardeners have never been shown this. Before explaining why this happened, it helps to understand what makes this plant so unusual in the first place. This plant does not behave like the vegetables most of us are used to. It does not depend on soil in the same way. Instead, it grows either directly in water or on a very light growing surface that holds moisture. Some people know it as a type of microgreen. Others may recognize it as a water-based plant, like duckweed. What matters most is how it grows. The roots do not search deep into the ground. They stay close to the surface, taking in nutrients directly from water. This changes everything. Without soil, there is less resistance. Growth can happen quickly and smoothly. In a traditional garden, you might wait weeks just to see strong leaves form. With this type of plant, visible growth can begin in just a few days. By the end of the week, you may already have something usable. The leaves are small, but they are concentrated. That means they hold a surprising amount of nutrients for their size. Protein is one of those nutrients, along with vitamins and minerals. It becomes a compact source of nourishment. This is where the idea of more protein than eggs begins to appear. But it needs to be understood carefully. When people hear that a plant has more protein than eggs, it can sound exaggerated. But the truth is a bit more detailed. The comparison usually comes from looking at dry weight, not fresh weight. Fresh plants, especially those grown in water, contain a lot of moisture. Eggs also contain water, but in a different balance. When scientists compare protein levels, they often remove the water from both foods first. What remains is the solid part. In that dry form, some of these plants show a higher percentage of protein than eggs. But this does not mean that eating a small handful will replace an egg completely. The water content still matters in everyday use, so the claim is not false, but it can be misunderstood. And this is where many people either get excited too quickly or dismiss it entirely. A calmer way to see it is this. These plants offer a rich source of nutrients in a small space, growing quickly and with very little effort. That alone makes them worth understanding. Even with all these benefits, most gardeners never try growing this type of plant. And the reason is not difficulty, it is simply habit. For many years, gardening has been closely tied to soil. We prepare beds, we mix compost. We think of roots going deep into the ground. This becomes the normal picture in our minds. So when a plant grows without soil, it can feel unusual. Some may even feel that it is not proper gardening. A quiet doubt is often enough to stop someone from trying. There is also a lack of awareness. These plants are not always displayed in garden centers. They are not often discussed in traditional gardening books. So they remain outside of everyday knowledge. It is not that they are hidden on purpose. They simply do not fit into the usual system most people are familiar with. Because of this, many gardeners continue doing things the harder way, without realizing that simpler options exist. Then comes a moment that changes everything. It often begins with a small experiment. A tray, a bit of water, and a few seeds or plant pieces. At first, nothing seems different, but within a couple of days, something shifts. Tiny green growth begins to appear. It is soft at first, almost easy to miss. But by the third or fourth day, it becomes more visible. the surface starts to fill in. The color deepens. By the end of the week, the change is clear. What started as a nearly empty tray now looks full and alive. This is the moment many people remember. Speed feels surprising. There's no digging, no heavy lifting, no long waiting. Just quiet, steady growth. With that comes a sense of confidence. Not because it is complicated, but because it is simple. The plant is doing most of the work on its own. This small success often changes how a person sees gardening. Shows that not everything needs to follow the old patterns, and this leads to a deeper question. Something like this works so well. Why is it not more widely used? The answer is not dramatic. It comes down to how large systems work. Plants like these are not always practical for large-scale farming. They grow quickly, but they also have a short shelf life. Once harvested, they do not last as long as many traditional vegetables. For commercial growers, this creates a challenge. They need crops that can be stored, transported, and sold over time. Fast-growing, delicate plants do not always fit that model. There is also the question of profit. Crops that require more time and resources can often be priced higher. Simple, fast-growing plants may not offer the same return in large markets. So over time, attention shifted toward crops that fit better into the system. Not because they are better for individuals, but because they are easier to manage on a larger scale. This does not mean anything was hidden from you. It simply means that some useful options were overlooked in everyday gardening. For someone growing at home, especially in a small space, the situation is very different. What does not work for large farms can work very well on a smaller scale. Now, it becomes important to understand where and how this type of growing works best. These plants are quite flexible. They can grow indoors or outdoors depending on the conditions. Indoors, they benefit from stable temperatures and protection from wind. A simple windowsill with good light is often enough. Outdoors, they prefer mild weather. Too much heat can cause water to warm quickly, which may affect growth. In cooler climates, growth may slow down, but it can still continue. Light is important, but it does not need to be intense. Gentle sunlight or indirect light is often enough. Too much direct sun can dry out the surface or overheat the water. Water quality also plays a role. Clean, fresh water helps the plant stay healthy. It does not need to be changed constantly, but it should not become stagnant. The good news is that these conditions are easy to create in most homes. A small tray, a calm spot, and a bit of attention are usually enough. Even so, beginners sometimes run into small issues, and these are worth understanding early. One common mistake is overwatering. This may sound unusual for a water-based plant, but it happens when the water becomes too still. Without movement or freshness, it can lose oxygen, which the plant needs. Another issue is poor light placement. If the tray is kept in a very dark area, growth will slow, and the plant may become weak. Some people also expect results too quickly. While growth is fast, it still follows a natural pace. Watching daily changes can help set realistic expectations. These are gentle mistakes. They do not cause permanent damage. In most cases, small adjustments are enough to correct them. For those who feel curious enough to try, starting small is often the best approach. A simple container, clean water, and a small amount of seeds or starter material are enough. There is no need for large setups or special equipment. Keeping things clean is important. Rinsing the container and using fresh water helps prevent unwanted buildup. This is a simple habit, not a daily task. Placing the tray in a calm, well-lit area allows the plant to grow naturally. There is no need to check it constantly. A quick look once or twice a day is enough. This kind of growing does not demand effort. It responds better to patience and observation. Over time, it becomes clear that the plant follows its own rhythm. It does not need to be pushed. It simply needs the right conditions. And this brings us to a quiet but important idea. Sometimes, the garden improves not when we do more, but when we do less. If you're comfortable sharing, I'm curious how often you find yourself checking on your plants during the day. There is a natural tendency to want to help growth along, to adjust to water, to move things around. But many plants, especially simple ones like this, do better when left undisturbed. Observation becomes more useful than action. Noticing changes, understanding patterns, and allowing time to pass. This approach reduces effort. It also builds confidence. Because instead of reacting to every small change, you begin to see the bigger picture. In the end, what seemed unusual at the beginning becomes quite simple. A plant that grows without soil, that develops quickly, that offers good nutrition in a small space. It is not a replacement for everything else in the garden. But it is a quiet reminder that not all growth needs to be complicated. Sometimes the plants that need the least from us give us the most in return. And sometimes the garden improves when we simply step back and observe.